Hello again, and welcome back to round 2 of my matches in the Goon tournament against Sammvt. We are now on Hellfen, where I'm playing as Britonia against the Vampire counts. I'm basically using a pretty standard lineup here with a fair few spearmen in front, some polearms on the flanks, a few field trebuchets, a few archers, a single unit of Pegasus Knight along with Leon Kerr, both a damsel and a paladin for the front lines. And over here I've hidden a unit of Grail Knights. Since I am up against the Vampire counts, and the Grail Knights are an incredible counter against any of the Wraith units those around. Meanwhile, Sam has brought a rather unconventional army this time. He has some direwolves hidden over here in the flanks, a front line almost consisting entirely of zombies, and, well, you probably see it, a lot of flying units. Varguys for days. Along with a few Felbats as well, and both a Vampire Hero and the Master Necromancer mounted as well. In addition, he also has 2 units of Cairn Raids coming from behind as well. Now in this particular map there's a lot of shallow water here, which is why my deployment is over here, since this is basically like cavalry, as in they'll be 80% effective in melee combat and move slower, except this affects regular units. So the plan was to try and bring enough artillery that would force him to move ahead, and then have him wade through this shallow water and pepper him full of arrows as he moved in. But the rather unconventional army setup of mass flying units kind of messes that up. I have to admit I was not quite sure what I was going to do about this, since I do have a fair few archers, but honestly it's probably a good thing I didn't have too many, since they would get absolutely crushed by this particular army. But for obvious reasons I am rather worried about Leon Kerr and the Pegasus Knights and how they'll handle this many units, but yeah, it's a relatively short battle, so you can probably see by the timer, so we'll be seeing how that goes very, very shortly. Field trebuchets, of course, firing on the first thing that's approaching them, the Varguys and Feldbats. I think they actually get a decent shot off at one point, but yeah, against a line this big, it's gonna be quite tricky. Peasant bowmen are getting to do a lot of damage on these Feldbats, and I think they almost managed to break them before. Well, they're not gonna break them, but they do manage to get down and start eating my field trebuchets before I can do anything. Yeah, at this point I tried to send in the Air Corps in order to take out either his hero or his Master Necromancer, since I was kind of worried about him trying to do a Wind of Death thing. But it does end up turning into a massive melee up here with lots of buffs and debuffs thrown on. Did I bring on the special weapon on Leon Kerr, which adds a fairly hefty debuff to several of his statistics. I believe it's melee attack at it's melee defense and armor, if I recall correctly. But yeah, even though the bats started crumpling as they go in, they do manage to chase away all the artillery. But again, since it's basically only zombies coming, I'm not as worried about that as I should be. Master Necromancer does get a pretty decent shot off at Leon Kerr, but I believe he's in range of the damsel, which does reduce the magic damage he takes in addition to his own passive, so he does manage to tank that pretty okay. But yeah, unsurprisingly, my air units are taking a fair bit of damage, but I do believe the peasant bowmen have been trying to help the entire time, and Vargeists are much less and Varguys are much less armored than Pegasus Knights and Leon Kerr, so the friendly fire isn't really gonna be all that much of a concern here. Still, I was quite impressed with how well both Leon Kerr and the Pegasus Knights handled this. Aside from when they were completely bogged down, they seem to be generally dominating in these air-to-air battles. Have had a fair few units who seemed, I don't know if they were routing or maybe they were chasing a unit, but yeah, they were these guys are absolutely out of position, and trying to regroup is by now probably my biggest priority, since these guys can just anyone who breaks formation is just gonna get overrun and eaten by these Varg guys. At this point, I tried to bring my Grail Knights around to for a flank, but since it ended up being so chaotic with the flying units, I kind of lose track, and yeah, they end up far away from the battle before I start sending them back. I do send the Air Corps down to try and intercept these cairn raids who are just about to approach my archers, and I can't remember if I bring in these pole arms to try and stop them instead. Meanwhile, these cairn raids have also gone in and are being held up by the spearmen and arms. I do consider if I should be charging. I do believe I do rear charge against these zombies who are getting buffed up by Undeath Resurgence. I believe that has to be the Master Necromancer. But yeah, I think I end up chasing in my mind and instead trying to get a charge on these cairn wraiths who are for some reason not moving into battle at this point. Most of the Varg guys at this point have, however, seem to have routed, so I'm a fair bit less worried since it's mostly frontline zombies. And there's the rear charge on the completely stationary cairn wraith, and you can see the kind of damage that does, since with the magical damage completely negating their physical resistance, these wraiths just get utterly annihilated in seconds, which is pretty fantastic for me. Although I'm honestly not sure if they had moved in to engage these archers, the outcome would probably have been the same in that particular regards. Meanwhile, Leon Kerr is getting very heavily wounded from some of the last Varg guys, and I think the Pegasus Knights might have a. I'm not actually sure where the Pegasus Knights are, if they are dead at this point. Feels like they would be. But yeah, at this point it feels like it's kind of a question if Leon Kerr is gonna be surviving the assault by these Varg guys who are crumbling and starting to take some pretty significant damage. But of course Leon Kerr does have his passive regeneration, which means that if he's not up against something that can deal damage to him quickly, he can survive for a very surprising amount of time. Does use the debuff to try and keep himself alive a bit further, and yeah, honestly, I had not even seen that this was considered a heroic victory. I'm not quite sure if I agree with that, since the funds were the same after all, and I definitely took a fair few losses. But yeah, I was extremely surprised that both Leon Kerr and the Pegasus Knights didn't get absolutely annihilated by the amount of Varg guys that Sam brought to this particular battle. So yeah, very short, very unconventional battles that I do end up winning, which means that I end up advancing without playing a third match in this particular round. So thanks for the good games, Sammvt, and good luck to you in your next fights, and hopefully I'll be seeing you guys for the next rounds, which, if I recall correctly, should be the quarterfinals. Take care.